We are live on a Friday for the Playbook ATS Podcast, filling in for Mark Lawrence, who is busy at work for the 2026 NFL and College Football Playbook Magazine Guide, however you want to call it. It's just awesome. So you can understand and give Mark the time off that he needs. So we're here to fill in and talk a little NBA and Major League Baseball. Next Friday, we'll be on the day after the first round of the NFL draft. And of course, that'll be day 2 of the NFL draft later in the evening when we are on the air, and we will go over the first round. And we will also take a look at Super Bowl futures, take a look at some teams that we like based on their offseason. And of course, the first round impacts their offseason more than any other round. So it'll be good timing. And we'll do that on next Friday's show. And maybe I'll get a pick or two as well as far as the NBA playoffs and Major League Baseball next week, because that's what we're going to do on this show. We're going to talk a little NBA and Major League Baseball with some picks. Andy Iskoe, Jim Feist joining us as usual. How's it going, fellas?
Excellent. Nice windy day out here, cold, and we're back in, feels like we're back in January.
I had to get the jeans out again after wearing shorts for the last 3 weeks when we had unseasonably warm temperatures that I think we may have touched 100 one of those days. I know we were in the 90s for
we definitely
quite a number of days. And getting set for the draft is kind of nice. I think it's nice because next Friday morning, everybody, all 32 teams will say, okay, we're going to make the Super Bowl this year, because they're all going to be excited after the first round of the draft. And of course, we know that's not true. In fact, more than the draft, I actually anticipate and look forward to the release of the schedule, because that really starts the handicapping process on a week-to-week and season win total, because we've already known who everybody plays home and away. That came out based upon the final standing. So that was out like an hour after the season ended. What we don't know, and it's so important in your handicapping, especially if you're taking a look at Survivor, last man standing type contests, the sequencing. How many times do teams play 3 on the road, etc. So the next, and that'll be just about a month from today, roughly in that time period that the NFL announces its schedule. They've leaked out some games as far as the Australia games and the overseas games, but we'll know the entire 17-game schedule in about a month. And for me, that's the official start of the 2026 season.
Andy, how many countries are we playing in this year?
Let's see. I would imagine Great Britain, Ireland, perhaps. Australia, we know, is new. France, possibly, and Spain, and Mexico. Perhaps. I guess it could possibly be as many as 6 countries.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, 7 if you include the United States.
Yeah, and we're going to be adding another game soon, which is always great.
And how many streaming sites are we going to have to go to get the games?
6 or 7.
Yeah.
You got Amazon Prime. You got, I think, Netflix now is involved. And like I mentioned last week, and I remember when Congress said no Super Bowl on pay TV.
Yeah, well, that's coming.
It's already here. What do you think cable is?
Okay.
People don't realize that, but that's true.
Yep. Yeah, we're all getting used to it, unfortunately. Okay, so let's first off, I want to pop up this tweet that we got or shared for our ProLine TV account. And of course, you can get the social media information right here in the description of this video. Joseph Freda, who is a gambling writer and broadcaster, worked for Don Best and others, weekly sports betting guest on The Lobby. And he made a comment, would be nice having ProLine TV do one from there. So Joseph, we need to know, where is there? I don't know where there is. I don't know where this tweet originated from. So you got a lot of comments here, though, about it. You were really involved in whatever this conversation was with Spanky and Bet Bash.
Oh, maybe that's what he's referring to.
So do you guys know who Spanky and Bet Bash are?
Probably wants us to do it from Bet Bash.
Yeah.
Oh, is Bet Bash a location?
It's like a
no.
It's like a weekend that they have here in Vegas with a lot of gambling and sports book operators from offshore, etc., coming into Vegas for I think it's like a long weekend, like a Thursday through Sunday type thing. They have seminars and
Have you been there
events
before?
like that. I have not.
Jim?
I have not. I have not.
But
either.
a lot of folks here in Vegas in the handicapping and sportsbook industry have.
Is it like marketing, networking kind of deal?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there you go. Answered from question. Next up.
Exchange information, share information. Yeah.
Okay. Major League Baseball.
I'm not sure.
play-
I'm not sure where they hold it. I think it might be at Circa. I'm not positive on that.
Oh, the actual
Bet Bash.
party. Bet Bash. Okay.
The gatherings.
The gatherings. Okay. And he said it happens
One
all weekend?
of our listeners might chime in with a comment that I'm sure we have some who.
I think it's pretty popular, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, we'll be talking about a pick every Friday on this show. And so you have a few afternoon games today, as you can see here. The rest are in the evening. Looks like the 2 afternoon games. You get the Mets and the Cubs. Actually, it's just 1 afternoon game. The Mets and the Cubs. And apparently the Mets, it's interesting because weren't we looking just, a week or 2 weeks ago, Jim? We were looking at the baseball futures, and I could have sworn the Mets were the favorite to win the division. And now everybody's saying that the Mets have all of a sudden been playing pretty bad baseball lately.
They lost 7 or 8 in a row, I believe.
Damn. Well, they
Yeah,
can't
they
be
might-
the favorite anymore, maybe, in the division.
They might,
Let me see.
they might be the favorite never to win.
And Senga has not looked very good early on. I considered going against them today, but I ended up not pulling the trigger because I'm not all that comfortable with the Cubs pitcher today, even though he's pitched nicely, Cabrera. I do like, however, and I have played the next game right up there, the Baltimore Cleveland game.
Okay.
I've done well with Baltimore, honor against them this year, Cleveland honor against them this year, but I'm looking at the total in this one, and I like the over the 8 with Bassett not in very good form. He's had a number of, I think every one of his efforts, maybe perhaps other than one, have been really bad, and BB also has been hit hard this year. So it's a situation, and I don't know what the well, let me see if I can pull it up on the screen, because in a situation like this, I like to look at 5-inning games, but more so for the unders. When I like 2 good pitchers, starting pitchers going up, I don't want to get the bullpen involved. And if the good pitchers pitch the way they have, they're going to last 5 innings, and maybe it's like, a 2-1 game after 5 before the bullpens get involved. I'm not so fond of first 5 innings for starting pitchers, simply because I want the bullpens involved if I'm going to look at an over. So even I could go in this one. Let me see what it is here. I would imagine if the total's 8, the total for the first 5 is probably 3.5 or 4. Let me see if I can pull that one up on that game. It's actually, I'm sorry, it's actually 4 or 4.5. This one's 4.5, which is a nice total, but I'd rather have the extra innings that the bullpen is likely to be involved in this one. So I've gone over the 8 in today's Baltimore-Cleveland game. It's at Cleveland, and it is a 3:10 Pacific, 6:10 Eastern time start.
Okay. I would have to think that the one team that would be a great overplay every game is my Washington Nationals. I mean, they have been incredibly offensive so far, which was real surprising, but they can't pitch.
And the pitching at the same point has also been offensive, but the other meaning of offensive.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm actually surprised that the run line is only 8.5. It should be 8.5 for the team.
You mean the totals line?
Yeah, the totals line. Yeah. So I got to imagine their totals line has got to be like, I mean, shouldn't it be over? Like, shouldn't it be like a good win percentage over if you bet the Nationals on like every game?
Well, the Nationals are averaging just over 5 runs per game and allowing almost 5.5 runs per game themselves. Now, who are they playing tonight? I don't have the schedule.
San Francisco.
They're playing San Francisco. San Francisco as a whole is not been a very strong offensive team. In fact, they've been one of the weakest teams. They've played 19 games, and they've only scored, I have to believe this is correct, 3 runs per game, 58 runs on the season. And they're only allowing 82, which is less than 4 runs.
Nice little contrast here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in that series all weekend. We'll see if who bites, offense or defense. Okay. Any other good series at all? I know the Pirates are off to a good start.
at some point they're going to fall back.
Is that a surprise to you guys?
Well, I'm sorry, I missed the. I got interrupted.
Pirates?
No, Skeens had that rough 2/3 of an inning when he got blasted by the Mets on opening day, but that was, of course, his first start after the World Baseball Classic, which had just ended. But he settled down and pitched nicely since then. I've got some nice young kids and a mixture of veterans on Pittsburgh. I think we talked about him, and I said it might be too much to ask for them to show the kind of improvement that the win-loss total suggested. But based upon what we've seen early, and Chandler's one of the guys who's pitched very nicely for them, is that maybe Pittsburgh is going to be now with, we played just over 10% of the season, 20 games out of the 162. Maybe Pittsburgh will be a nice surprise team this year because Milwaukee is the best team in that division. Of course, Yelich is not going to be out for about a month, they're suggesting, but there's no real dominant team in that division.
Okay.
I don't know that any team in that division can win 90 games.
This should be a good series, right? Texas and Seattle.
Seattle's got the pitching, but they just, the hitting has been really, really subpar. Raleigh's not done what he did last year when he had 60 home runs. I like Seattle as a team. Texas, I'm still uncertain about.
Well, it's still early, and these teams are just rounding into shape. I mean, I can't fault anybody for the first 10% of the season. I mean, anything can change around. But you're talking about a first 5 innings, which I like to do, especially if you like pitchers. I look at Kansas City and the Yankees first 5 under.
Okay,
that's and I think Pittsburgh wins today. You can't when you look at Texas and Seattle, you never know what you're going to get out of DeGrom if he's healthy, and he's not been healthy for a long time. Off and on, Gilbert's good, very good. I mean, they bet it up, but
so you're going to go with the Yankees, Royals, first 5 under. And did you say that you like Pittsburgh to win?
Yes, I like
Pittsburgh. The dog.
I like Pittsburgh. Yeah,
Okay.
Pittsburgh's a favorite.
And again,
let me give you
that 1.5. Do you go with the money line minus 122?
Well, you're paying a lot more than that now, probably 130.
130. Okay.
Yankees, Kansas City, Waka against Schlittler, both very good pitchers. Total is 4 with the over at -1 at -120. So under 4 even money would be the play on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. That's our baseball coverage for the week. You've got 3 bets. Andy's going over 8, Baltimore and Cleveland. Jim's going under 4, first 5 innings, Kansas City Yankees, and he's also taking Pittsburgh to win the game outright at -130. Interesting that
that would be a
Rays,
130 on that's 130 on the run line, -1.5
on the run line. It's interesting that this is Tampa Bay's -1.5
right away, so we don't have to
when
do this.
Pittsburgh is the money line favorite. That's unusual, isn't it?
If you get in, change the login and password right away.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second
Doing
here.
2 things at once. I'm sorry, I'm missing some of the conversation.
No, you're right. I was looking at different. Pittsburgh just to win straight up is minus. I'm seeing anywhere from probably -120, 125 straight up, not the run line. Run line is +160, asking them to win by 2. I think just asking them to win the game, like Jim said, is -120 is fine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, they got Tampa Bay with the run line. Plus, okay, they're the plus, but what?
Yeah, they're a +1.5.
Why do they got -1.5 though for Tampa Bay?
-1.5 for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, see,
there's alternate lines you can bet on any game.
Well, shouldn't they be the alternate section? This is the actual line.
Well, that's got
usually the favorite, in this case, Pittsburgh -122 would be minus the 1.5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So I don't know
unusual.
if I'm showing it the other way. I'm actually showing Pittsburgh -1.5 at +160.
They probably have it wrong then. They probably screwed it up.
that's a misprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if they're -122, remember they're the home team, so they may not bat last, so you get a better price on the -1.5. So yeah, -1.5 is +160, not minus the 197 or whatever they showed there for Pittsburgh on the plus. Although let me give a caveat there. There are some places that do use alternate or reverse run lines, and this may be one of the games based upon the site that you're using.
Okay.
I would be surprised,
DraftKings.
but I couldn't rule it out.
Okay, so I was reading Athletic NBA postseason preview, and this I found it interesting. Who is the writer here? Yes, I can't show it because this is a paid site. John Hollinger.
Oh, long-time NBA guy.
He goes, "It's wide open." That's everyone's favorite saying when the NBA postseason begins, and in recent years, it's been more true than ever. Favorites have been unusually vulnerable in the post-pandemic NBA, with teams seeded 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th all making at least the conference finals. The 8th-seeded Miami Heat winning the Eastern Conference in 2023, and the 4th-seeded Indiana Pacers being 1/2 away from winning the 25 title. The long-term average is that fewer than 4 teams without home court advantage will prevail out of 15 series, but the last 6 seasons have been different. 31 non-home court teams have advanced, or about 5.2 per year. That includes 5 teams without home court advantage winning series last season.
That's why. Now, let me ask you this question: Is that in the first round, or is that throughout the entire? Because they're going to be.
Oh, that's entire.
Okay, there are what 15 series, I believe. You've got 8, 4, 2, and 1.
There you go. Well, there you go. Because that's what he says. As the long-term average is that fewer than 4 teams without home court advantage will prevail out of 15 series.
Okay, that's okay.
For some weird reason, the second round has been mayhem. Teams with home court advantage in the conference semifinals have won just 9 of the last 24 series. Last season, 2 60-win teams were bounced in the second round, and a third needed 7 games to survive. Nonetheless, this time around, I expect things to be a bit chalkier. 2 teams dominated from the West. Odds would seem to heavily favor one or the other.
Yep.
Eventual champs. He also talks about a few other things. And then one of the things he talks about is, that leaves, here it is. Historically, the rule of thumb is held for 45 years now, with one glaring exception in 1995. If you aren't seeded 3rd or better and didn't win at least 52 games with at least a plus 3.0 margin, which has been prorated for shortened seasons, you're not winning a title. This sounds like something Mark Lawrence would say. Yes. That leaves 6 qualifiers this season: Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Denver, Detroit, Boston, and the New York Knicks. It's fair to say that it would be a huge surprise if a team other than these 6 was our eventual champ, with perhaps a slight wink to the Cavs as a dark horse. Recent injuries to the Lakers only make that more true. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, there's only a few teams in the NBA that have the depth of talent to win it all. And you got to remember too that the NBA season is like one big preseason, like in football. They don't play hard. They don't play with the intensity. They don't play deep with their lineups. They have a lot of, holding out players. It's not every game, of course, but you don't see what you're seeing now. This is quality basketball. The shame of it is the best athletes in the world, that when they play, it's a remarkable game. And now we're going to see that. This is why it's so much more predictable in the playoffs than it is, for me anyway, in the regular season, because you actually can see what these guys can do. That's why those numbers, until you talk about in the West, who do you got? You got 3 teams out in the West that most likely are going to take it. San Antonio, you got Denver, you got OKC. Is there anybody else that I'm missing? I don't think so. In the East, you got Boston, you got Cleveland, and you got who else?
New York.
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit. I think he said Detroit, Boston, and the Knicks, if I recall. I think that's who I read.
Yeah, that's 4. But the question now is, how good are the teams that haven't been really pushing it all season long? And that's the question. We're going to have to answer that question going forward. And that's why I like the NBA in the playoffs, because this talent is going to raise up the coaches. The better coaches are going to raise up. And because there's really in the regular season, there's nothing to play for except position, and
to make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing that matters.
I probably made fewer bets in the NBA this year than I have in any previous season because of the tanking and not knowing what's going to happen. The other thing we also don't know when we just look at the wins, and I'm sure somebody's done a study out there, and maybe it'll be on the internet somewhere. Remember, a lot of these teams that have won the 50 or 60 games, or the ones that made it with fewer, they also beat a lot of teams that were tanking. So how many of these wins were against good teams that are in the playoffs versus how many wins were against teams that weren't trying? We don't know. Now, I'd like to actually, getting back to what Greg was reading, I'd like to see a sports book put up a wager talking about those upsets through the first 3 rounds. Eastern Conference versus Western Conference. Which conference will have the more upsets in the 7 series that they each play within the conference? Because I could see more upsets occurring in the East because there's not really dominant teams. Detroit won 60 games, but it was in a weaker conference. I've got, for example, I would be surprised, even despite those numbers, if it's not San Antonio and Oklahoma City playing for the right to go to the NBA Finals. Those teams have been not just dominant over the season. Consider the fact that OKC won 64, San Antonio won 62. Then the next best team, Denver, won 54. That's a huge gap between the second and third best teams in a conference. But not only that, OKC and San Antonio have been consistent from the very start of this year and even down the stretch of the teams in the playoffs over the last 25 games. OKC 21-4, San Antonio 21-4. Nobody else over 20. 19 I think was the next highest. So they've been playing well throughout, and they've been playing even at the end. Even if they're not trying, they're still 21-4 at the end of the season. And
so are these teams better this year than they have been the last couple of years?
San Antonio, clearly. Okay. OKC won the title, so.
And how about the others? Because, again, he's trying to tell you that he's giving you those stats. Yeah. So the only way that those stats are going to change and be chalkier is if these teams are better than they've been the last few years. And so we're going to see less upsets.
Well, the one team that I mentioned, San Antonio, would be the concern because of their lack of experience.
I think Denver is being I can't get away from all these phone calls and stuff that's going on here. Too many things happening at once. I think Denver is a shot to win this thing. I don't.
Yep.
If they're healthy, Jokic is the best player in basketball, in my opinion. Spurs, Thunder, and Nuggets are really tough in the West. Now, as far as the East is concerned,
excuse me, Jim, I'll also throw Minnesota in there.
You think?
Really?
They've got 3 quality players with Gobert, Anthony Edwards, and Randall.
Well, if that's the case, they are really priced high.
Yeah.
That's a big price on them. And obviously, the odds makers don't agree with you. I'm not saying you're wrong, but that's a very different. They're really an outlier in the prices. That's for sure.
So you think that's your sleeper to win maybe a couple of rounds, Minnesota, Andy?
I would say that the winner of the Minnesota-Denver series, because I like both teams, will be in the Western Conference Finals.
Okay.
They'll get by their second round opponent, which could be San Antonio. It could be San Antonio and Denver.
And I think Denver has a chance to win the whole thing.
I do as well.
Yeah. So Minnesota, Denver finals for Andy and Jim. Denver. I'm talking about the top.
No, I'm saying Minnesota or Denver will be
Minnesota,
in
Denver
the
winner in the finals.
Yeah.
And Jim's got Denver to win it all as his. Now, is it just your sleeper pick, Jim, or is that actually the way you're going to go?
Well, it's a sleeper pick just based on the odds.
Okay. So what are your overall predictions then? Who do you like to throw out? That's your sleeper. So who's your pick then to play in the NBA Finals?
Denver, Boston.
Denver, Boston. Okay.
I'm going to go OKC and I'm going to go with New York.
Wow, New York. Okay.
They paid their dues. We've seen this in the NBA historically, that you pay your dues. You make the playoffs. You have a nice little run. You improve the next year, and then then maybe year 3 or 4 you can win it all. And I think the Knicks have made that journey into at least making it into the finals. But I think it'll be OKC defeating the Knicks.
Okay, so that would be 4-1 on the Knicks getting to the final. So that would be a good option there. And then again, we've got Denver at 8-1 to actually win it all. And the Celtics being the third choice means that if it is Denver and Boston in the series, and you pick Denver, then you can have a decent hedge, especially if Denver goes up 1-0. Yeah. So.
Well, Denver would have the home court advantage with 62 wins versus 56
okay, even better.
Boston. So yeah,
even better. Okay. Well, that's the play then.
Keep in mind with Boston, Tatum out for most of the years, back what he played, maybe about 3 weeks to a month right now, looking great, and he'll also be the freshest player in the playoffs because he missed so much of the season. That can help Boston tremendously.
So we're not going to talk about LaMelo Ball because that'll take up about a half hour of our content, and we really don't want to give him that much time in our lives. And that'll wrap it up. So again, next week, we're going to talk about the NFL. We'll get some more picks on the NBA playoffs and Major League Baseball, but should be fun next week. Again, we're going to give some early futures based on how the NFL offseason has gone to this point, and with the first round in the books by the time we do the show next Friday. So, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Let me put it to you this way, Greg. The half hour we're not doing this week will be made up for next week.
Absolutely. Yes.
There'll be plenty to
when
talk
it comes
about.
to football, yeah, you can bet we'll have a lot to talk about. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll do it again next week. Don't forget, Jim Feist will return on Tuesday for the Jim Feist Show. And what do we have in store Tuesday, Jim?
I don't know.
Maybe some NFL talk.
No,
right?
Really? Well,
what about NBA playoffs?
What about talking about possibly?
I like to stay current. I like baseball and basketball are going on. NFL's in the distant future. We're going to cover it next week.
Okay.
Let's stick with what we got going on.
The only thought I had for you guys is maybe talk some betting propositions for the draft.
That's not bad.
We could do that.
Over under quarterbacks, what would be the biggest position? Because I have not yet seen here in town. I know it offshore they've been available. I've not yet seen here in Vegas, and I haven't looked everywhere, draft propositions, but they'll usually come out 3 to 4 days before
they've got
draft.
Oh yeah, I was looking at.
I haven't seen them. I've seen them for the the DraftKings and FanDuels. Yeah, I haven't seen them for the Vegas books yet.
Okay.
They may be out
we
there,
can go over that because I've seen some where, obviously you can decide if you see any outliers on players that you think will get drafted and, maybe they're 4 or 5 to 1, that sort of thing. So we'll go over that and we'll talk NBA and Major League Baseball. And again, it all depends. Maybe Jim will have a special guest. So we never know. That's on Tuesday on the Jim Feist Handicapping Show. And that is going to wrap it up. Guys, appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Take care, guys.
Take care, everybody.